Hello and welcome back to my Dandelion Diaries. This has been a highly requested video, so I'm going to do my best, but this is going to be the flip through of my garden journal that I did for 2023. So I have a medium-sized garden that I take care of, and I like to keep track of like all of the different stuff that I grow, or my chickens or my animals. Like, I just like to have a space for them, and that's what this journal was for. So a lot of the decoration in here is from the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 in the front. I did a quote from, I think it's 𝗦𝘃𝗽𝗏𝗏𝗏. It says, "We might think we are nurturing our garden, but of course it's our garden that is nurturing us." I love that quote because I find it very, very true. This book is the Hobonichi Weeks Standard bow and tie bunnies. By the way, it was their Year of the Bunny cover that I really enjoyed. I did a washi wallpaper here of all the different vegetable washies that I had. This is more 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 stuff, and then I just titled it as my garden planner. For the Year at a Glance pages, I did my precipitation and frost tracker. I have done this for a few years now. I love being able to see when we get rain, when we get snow, and just kind of like how our weather looks. I really like how the Hobonichi Weeks has the previous year, so I can compare them side by side, but moving into 2024, I'm only going to have the one in the common planner, so we'll see if I go back and I add the previous year. I don't know how I feel about that yet, but it's really nice to see, like, compare how the year changed from year to year, like at least with rain, so I can see like one year we have a really wet year and the next one's really dry or whatever. So there's that. For the index pages or calendex pages, this is my pride and joy. This is my temperature tracker. I have done this for 3 years. I think 3 years, maybe. I have to go check. I have them all on a shelf. But anyways, I basically do the high and the low temperature for every single day and make a dot key at the top of, you know, what colors, what temperature range. I did, I think, every 7 degrees, 26 to 32, 33 to 39, etc. I will definitely continue this for years because I love how this turns out. I can see how we go from being really cold to like warming up to being really hot for a few months, and then going back to being more cool, and then going into the new year. This year, January and February is usually when we get our coldest weather, but last year we had temperatures in like the 80s in January, which was insane. So I don't know if we're gonna have that again this year. It'd be pretty crazy. Anyways, for the monthlies, I mainly use this as a space to write down when I was planting stuff, when I was starting stuff, whatever. I used a lot of the 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏 bullet journaling kit things. I was writing down, when our chickens were 3 months old, when I flea treated cats, the different moons. Like, I was just going through when I was doing anything for the garden and making a note of what day I did it. And I do like the way this looks, but I think for 2024, I'm changing it up a little bit just to keep more on track of my garden space, like how it's growing and developing and things like that, versus just writing down, okay, wow, it was 112 degrees that day. We had a brush pickup, like we had 2 days of wonderful no degrees in the hundreds, like, or when my chicken died. Like, it's nice to see that as a snapshot, but I also want to do more of like, okay, I planted seeds this day, I harvest them this day, so I can really see how long like the grow time is for certain things. But for the monthly pages, I didn't use them all that much towards the end of the year because I just didn't have anything growing anymore. But yeah, that's pretty much it for monthly pages. I'm sure I blew through that really fast, so sorry. Again, I don't use the blank or the extra monthly pages because I have no use for them. I guess I could, but I don't have a use for them, so I just leave them blank. For the weeklies, this was like my main layout in the beginning. So I was sharing a lot of my garden stuff on social media. So that's why I had this tracker here, but I don't do that anymore. And then I had like my task list, the weather, and then like a little master list kind of thing going on. And I definitely kept up with this for a while. Let me get to some other pages. Okay, so this is when we were on vacation for Christmas, so I just didn't do anything there. And then I kept up with that style of layout for a while. And then I want to say getting closer to like the spring is when I changed it up. Maybe, because now we're in spring, we're in March. I guess I didn't. I thought I did. Okay, yeah, so here's where I think I started to change it up. So I was still doing my master list. I think I tried to use this as like a work planner at some point, and it just wasn't working because I had already used it as a garden planner. I think I was really trying to utilize as much space as possible and try to see how much I could fit in here. Okay. This is probably when shit hit the fan and I just wasn't using this book, or I didn't want to use it anymore, I think. Okay, and then I think I started over back to, I honestly don't know what I did here. It's the beauty of looking back at these. Okay, yeah, so this is when I went back to the originally I was using it. So I had like weather, tasks, the little synopsis of a routine over here, and then master list. Okay, and this was probably when I was like, you know what, we're sticking with it. We're going to keep up with doing that. And I think I did better. Heat index. Oh, this is when I was out of town and my boyfriend had to help keep track of everything. Was counting eggs. I definitely used this more for, I think, what I was considering work at the time versus garden. And then I shifted it more towards garden as the months went on into more of like growing season time. And I was able to keep track of like what I needed to pull, what I needed to harvest, what I needed to plant. And I definitely utilized the back pages more for that. And I'll get to there when we get to the back pages. And then, okay, yeah, this is when I was like, okay, I think I'm falling off this planner again because I just don't want to use it. This was August, yeah, when everything had pretty much started dying because it got so hot so fast. So I was using it mainly to keep track of my chicken stuff. And I think I kept up with the chicken stuff more than anything else. Yeah. I definitely fell off using this for a little bit some days because I just didn't have anything to do other than, you know, take care of my chickens, which is a couple of tasks to write down and that's it. But I also was planning for 2024 and I didn't write it in this book because I didn't think I would have enough notes pages. So I was writing it in another book, which brings me to 2024's book is much bigger than this one. Yeah, I just kept up with the same thing. Weather, tasks, master list, daily checklist. Pretty consistent there. This is when we got sick. But I stayed consistent with this when I was sick because, you know, your animals don't go on vacation. But yeah, so this is when we left and my mom was house sitting and chicken sitting and taking care of the garden for me while we were gone. So I didn't write anything down because I didn't take this with me and there was no point. And then this was the last week of the year and I didn't have anything to write again because we were out of town for most of it and everything was good. So I wrote my little entry here instead of in the back pages, which brings me to the notes pages. So I started this book off with books that I wanted to review for the garden and I made it to one book. Surprise. And then I had products that I wanted to review as well. So we were looking at getting a wood chipper, which we did end up getting. I wanted to review our lawnmower and make sure there wasn't anything we needed to do with that. We ended up getting a chainsaw this year too, and then lots of other different minor little tools. This is when I wanted to do my recipes and I figured out I did not leave myself enough pages. I left myself 3 pages. 3 pages, Danielle. 3 pages to do recipes on. I don't know what I was thinking. Anyways, this next section is probably like the beef of the notes pages, and this is my things that to grow in 2023. So I'll explain this a little bit as much as I can. It's really hard to read on camera, I'm sure, because of the colors I used, but I'm going to do my best. So on the right page, I basically wrote out every single type of vegetable or plant, food-wise, that I could grow this month. That would be indoor, direct seeding outdoors, or transplanting into the ground. Since I'm in zone 8 in Texas, I have a very long growing window, and typically I start planting seeds in January, usually indoors, and then by the time they're little seedlings or saplings, I can plant them out in March when our cold weather goes away. But this is basically a master list of every single type of thing I could grow. Not what I did grow, but what I could grow. And then for the other page is what I did grow. So this has like all the different varieties of tomatoes, tomatillos, peppers, all the herbs I planted, all the lettuces I planted in January, indoors or outdoors, depending on what it was. And this was just like a way for me to keep track of it. This is what I needed more notes pages for in this book. So I was trying to be minimalist with my notes pages because I was so scared of running out. And I'll show you how many I have left because I stopped writing in it, and I think that was part of my problem, is I just didn't have the willpower to keep writing because I was so scared of running out of pages. And I only set up 2 pages per month, so I did like January, February, March, and so on. And so I was continuing to keep notes of like what I could possibly plant and then what I did plant. And then I think towards April is when I again dropped off, similar to like what happened with the weeklies. Here's where I just made a little note of like, okay, planted out the cucumbers and nasturtiums instead of writing down exactly how many I planted out. So I was using it a little bit less than I wanted to. Okay, yeah, so I made a note here that I had to replant my tomatillos and peppers because we had a really big problem with cutworms this year. So I wanted to make a note with that. I harvested my potatoes in May, which was a little late, honestly. And then June continued again. And this is when the month that got really hot, so we lost a lot of our garden space. And then I was trying to plan out what I wanted to do for my fall garden. So what ended up happening is I didn't start my seeds on time for my fall garden this year, and I didn't clear my garden space fast enough because I was so busy doing other things and it was just so freaking hot. So I didn't actually get to plant my fall garden this year, which was fine. We did just fine. It was totally okay. But next year I definitely want to do better about that. And so that's why a lot of these monthly pages for the fall were blank because nothing happened. We did get our first freeze in October this year though, which was almost a month early. Usually we get it towards the end of November, and we got it at the end of October this year, or this past year. Oh my gosh, we're in 2024, Danielle. We're in 2024. Oh my God. Anyways, it came early, and I wanted to note that down because that was not normal. But it got back warm again for November and December. It was weird. Anyways, I didn't plant anything again because I was just not ready to, and that's what I left that for. So after I did all of my monthly possible plants and what I did plant, I used the back pages as more of like a weekly diary system of like, okay, this week this happened, blah, blah, blah. So a lot of this is really messy. This is my garden bed sketch again. Here's a dog food recipe. Here's my poison ivy tincture recipe. Like I said, I was using this for so many different things and it just became so unorganized and I didn't want to use it. I've blocked off some pages that I'm not comfortable sharing, but towards the end, I think is when I really tried to be short and sweet with what I was doing because I was so scared of running out of notes pages, which I know I've said probably like 10 times in this video. So I was only doing a short synopsis per week versus doing a full blown out page like I wanted to of what was going on in the garden space. But I basically wrote out just the bare minimum of what was going on throughout the year with the garden. And I think towards the end, I just kind of stopped writing as much as I was still writing. Like I was still writing, but I still stopped writing at the same time. Like I was trying to make it shorter and shorter and shorter, even though there was more stuff going on, like with our chickens dying and stuff. But that's it. That's all of the entries I did. And I ended up having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 pages left. And I think if I had just written the amount that I wanted to write, I would have made it through all of the notes pages and then needed like a little book on the side. But I was so scared, which sucks, that I didn't even use all of the pages, even though I got really close to doing that. Anyways, moving on. The back pages I didn't really use for a whole lot. This is the main page that I use. This used to be like the favorites page, and I just split this into spring, summer, autumn, and winter and wrote out what I harvested for those sections. This is useless to me. Like, honestly, looking at this, I'm like, why did I even start this? But I mean, this planner was not my favorite for a garden journal, which is why I am moving on to a different planner for 2024. But I will say I did really like having the weekly sections the way I did towards the end of the year. I think this was one of my favorite ones, where I had it laid out with like the weather, tasks, the daily, and then the master list. And I definitely want to keep this. And then going into 2024, I changed it up a little bit, which I talked about in my setup for that video. So I'm not going to go over it again here. But overall, I was really happy to have this journal, and especially all of the data with like the weather and the precipitation and the temperature and everything, considering I had been tracking this for a few years now, and having a space for it again and again and again is really useful to me. I just think towards the monthly and weekly pages, I lost sight of what I originally wanted to do with it, and I don't want to do that for 2024. So I'm going to have a better organized system for that for this coming year. Anyways, that is it for my garden journal. I know that was probably really quick, but there's not really a whole lot to say other than it's how I used it. I don't really want to go into the nitty-gritty of like, every week I did this, every month I did this, every blah, 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 blah. Like, I feel like that's, I don't know. I don't feel like sharing that, and I'm sorry, but I'm going to leave that with this journal, and it's going to go on the shelf with the other ones like it, and we're going to move on into my 2024 books because I am so excited for them, and yes, I'm just really happy with what I've chosen so far. Anyways, like I said, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. If you have any questions, I'm always happy to answer. Gardening is a very fun hobby and passion of mine. I do garden to kind of support our eating in a way, feed our dogs and animals and everything. So I don't like I said, it's not a large garden, but it's medium sized, I guess. So I grow a lot of different things. But anyways, I'm gonna leave the video off here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.